All right, we're finally ready to cover resources and our personal resources. So I'm going to select personal resources. Now, by default, when you sign into resources, you're going to have one of these boxes up top called home. This is called a collection, which means it's a collection of resources. Okay, think of these like your file cabinet in your room. So each one of the collections is one drawer in a file cabinet. So in this case, the first one is labeled home. Now you can put everything inside of home, but just like a file cabinet in your room, if every material is in one folder, it becomes harder to find. That's not to say you can't do it as long as you have folders labeled inside so that you clearly know what all your content is and it's organized. But it's not always the best way to manage everything. It's better to actually put your different subjects in different drawers in your filing cabinet. So we're going to talk about how to set up these collections here briefly. But the first thing I want to show you is these top four options. So home, we just talked about. It's a collection or a drawer of resources that you are creating inside of Schoology that you're going to keep year to year. Learning objectives is your state standards. Now, by default, there is nothing in here. But if you click the Add button, you'll notice you can add a folder to organize your standards, or you can come in here and add specific state standards that you want to align with your lessons. Now, we don't do that a lot. It's not really required. But if this is something that you're looking for and that you want to add to your resources, or you want a quick reference to standards, you can actually come down here and click on state standards. And if you scroll down here, you can actually choose any one of these standards. Down at the bottom is another state standards, and you can choose Ohio. And you can look through all of these standards and apply them to your courses. So let's just say we're going to do pre-K, early learning and development. And we'll just go through here and choose some of these standards. You'll see what they are, and we can add these learning objectives to our course. Now these are eligible to be added to assignments later. Okay, we'll talk more about these later, but just know you can set your standards inside of Schoology. You can import them so that when you're creating assignments, if someone was to come back and ask you, well, what learning objective does this hit, and you want to, like earlier we talked about mastery, if you want to see where the students were with their knowledge of these standards, you can actually use that calculation in your course to figure out where they fall short and where they actually are hitting the mark or excelling. Okay, so that's what learning objectives is. Your downloads option here is just another folder or another drawer inside of your shelf. You got home. Downloads really isn't used much. The big area where you would see this being used is with public resources. Now, if you didn't watch that video, please go back and watch it. But if I was to go to public resource and actually choose a lesson to add, you'll notice that one of the options that I would have in here, if you watch the other video, is adding it to my downloads folder. Okay, that would actually go here. See how that showed up? I just downloaded that and it shows up here. Now I can go in here and delete it if I don't really want it, or I can move it to a course or move it somewhere else. But that's where downloads comes into play. Below that is public. Again, this one is not used very much. You can add items from the public resource into here as well. You really won't use it, but just know that is there. Now on my screen you'll see I've got some other collections, but these are ones I've created. So let's go back to up to home real quick. Now again, we just talked about the home collection, and again, this is like a drawer in a file cabinet. Now by default you can go in here and you can add resources, and under options you can actually reorder your collection, which means once you start adding things in here, if I click reorder, I can drag these around and put them in an order that I choose and hit submit. So I can keep these organized so that it makes sense to me. The other option you have is you can auto arrange the collection But if you do that, it's going to order it by type and then alphabetical order. So you notice it put my folders up top, and then it put my quizzes, my assessments, and my links down here. Now this link was imported from a previous video created online. I did not create this one. I'm going to go in and delete that resource because I don't want it. So I'm going to click on the gear icon next to it. Oops, can't do that first because I hadn't hit submit. But if I click on that gear icon next to that link, you'll notice I can delete that or add it to a course. So keep in mind that if you auto arrange, it's not going to be perfectly in alphabetical order. It's going to actually arrange it by type before it does alphabet. So your folders are going up top first. Okay, now that's what your home resource is. Now there's a big limitation to this. I can add these things that I create in here to a course if I would like, but notice there's no share button. One of the benefits of having Schoology in this online program is being able to work with your colleagues. Some of you work together very closely. Some of you do the same things. For instance, a spelling list or books that you read, a book study or something like that. If you are covering the same material, there's no reason why you can't share material in Schoology with other people who need access to it. Don't recreate the wheel. Don't take an assignment from someone else and try to write it up yourself. If you're using the same thing, share the resource. The way we do that is we create a new collection. Again, think of this like a drawer in a cabinet. This button right here allows you to create a new collection. All we do is we add it and we title it something that makes sense to us. Now this may be a class, so maybe I'm going to say this is History 101. Now I'm using a very generic term, but it's something that makes sense to you. So maybe this is spelling, or maybe this is Moby Dick, or maybe this is I don't know, algebra. Whatever you can think of that makes sense to you, you can name your collection anything. I'm going to go ahead and click create. You'll notice I get the new collection right here. Now this one isn't going to have anything in it, but notice I have the same options that I did with home, the add resources and options. Those are the exact same, where I can add folders, assignments, tests, etc. And then we can go to options, rename the collection, delete the collection. But notice I now have this share icon. If I click share, I can go in here and find someone by picking the school, typing in that person's name or a part of a name, and then select them and hit add people. That person now becomes available to share resources. They can add, they can borrow, they can do whatever you want. So you can work together as a team with these shared resources. Now if I go to one of my other collections, you're going to notice that there's content inside of here that now I can share. These are assessments and folders that I've created. If I click on the photography folder, you'll notice I've got some questions in here. This is actually, I believe, a question bank that I've created. So I've got these assignments in here that can be shared with other people in the district if I want. Okay, so that's the power of collections. The home you cannot share. When you create a new collection and organize your collections, you can share this with other people. Plus, this is very neat. It's easy to find information in collections that are labeled. So I'm not going to home and trying to find my math class, my spelling class, my science class, any of those kind of things. I can actually have those in their own collections. I can share them with people if I need to. If I don't want to share them, I don't have to. It's just better organized if I do it that way. If I click on this button right here, the down arrow, you'll see I can reorder the collections. So for instance, I don't like the fact that video productions 2 is below 1. I wish this was in more alphabetical order. Maybe I don't even want the public and those up top. Maybe I want those down below because I'm not going to use these as often. So I can reorder those and hit save. And then I can actually import or export entire collections. So if you ever say leave the district and you're going to another district and you want to take these resources with you, you can actually export your resources to your computer, save them, and pack them up and take them with you wherever you go, and you've got everything with you. Okay, so that is what this down arrow does. So that covers the basic overview of what a collection is, how to create new collections, and what a few of these options here as far as rearranging collections does. In the next video, we're going to get into adding resources. We're going to start covering each one of these one at a time. Okay, so the add folder one, I will probably roll in with the assessment, or actually we'll cover add folder last, but we'll start running through these right here one at a time so you understand what each one of these is and what it does. Okay, we will see you in the next video.